Hello, my name is Dominic Kaffka. I am the Senior Vice President and Managing Director of IMG Focus. In my role, I produce New York Fashion Week, the shows, a few other events and properties that belong to the IMG Fashion Events Group, such as Australian Fashion Week. And in my role as Managing Director for IMG Focus, we produce countless fashion shows and experiential activations and events, mostly for fashion designers. All around the globe.
Hi, my name's Chelsey Wayte, and I'm the Vice President of Global Marketing and Programming at IMG Fashion.
Let's start how fashion weeks changed since COVID, because we're still somewhat during COVID. What we've seen What we have seen over the past 4 seasons is that designers get increasingly more interested hosting fashion shows in a more digital transformative way. That said, in September 2020, which was really the first full-on COVID season during New York Fashion Week, most of our designers elected to shoot fashion movies, image films, innovative lookbooks. Just a few decided really to host in-person runway shows. Over the past few years, I think what really has changed is that the global fashion calendar between New York, London, Milan, Paris has somewhat become even more global, with a lot of big brands flying editors and buyers and influencers around the world for destination shows during resort season. So what we've seen really is that the calendar somewhat gets more distributed throughout the year. Are fashion shows still relevant today? That's a very interesting question. We believe fashion shows are even more relevant than they probably were before COVID started. One reason is that there's really no format yet, or no technology yet, that really can replace live experience for guests to look at new garments, right? We also think that the whole drama, the whole theatrical experience of a fashion show that is so deeply interconnected with the choice of location, the choice of music, the show soundtrack, the choice of lighting, the choice of a scenic design, is really important to emphasize the creative each designer comes up with. And I think with the past few seasons being a little bit slower, with less live events and less live shows, everyone really has realized what's missing. IMG champions all New York Fashion Week designers, and we champion all of their businesses. So we believe that offering a return to live event and live production and production support, as well as offering digital innovative opportunities, is really important. And it's important to champion that as the world safely returns to more in-person gatherings. New York City, Spring Studios remains the hub for New York Fashion Week, the shows. So we will be continuing to support the broader industry through physical production resources. And that includes also flexible show spaces and showrooms.
So while COVID has imposed tremendous challenges for the industry in recent years, I'd say that the one thing that we've really learned is that there's still such a strong interest amongst designers in the industry in Fashion Week, and brands do really still see the value in participating. Secondly, I would say that the old rules of showing no longer apply. When we look at the power of Fashion Week and the value that it has for the designers that show up each season, we were really interested in digging a little deeper in that. And last year we partnered with Launchmetrics to put a study together to really understand what the media impact value was, and what the reach is there for the brands, and how they can amplify their content through various digital platforms. And it was really interesting to see that on average, brands receive up to 4 times more press coverage and social buzz when they show during an organized fashion week versus doing something off season. Just the association with New York Fashion Week alone brings even more prominence to the designer brands who are showing through that halo effect. And, showing on season, we've seen upwards of nearly 40% of the media impact value coming from the connection between the two. New York Fashion Week alone generates $258 million in media impact value each year worldwide, with more than half of the conversations coming from outside of the USA. So, this really shows that not just in our local market, but globally, Fashion Week is still super relevant.
What determines the success of a fashion show? First of all, I think you can't answer this question in general. Every designer, every brand has different KPIs, different goals they want to achieve through hosting a fashion show. A lot of our clients, of course, seek to create content that is easily shareable, seek to create an experience for their guests that fly internationally, that is lasting. And of course, in the end, it's a huge investment for everyone to host a show, to spend a few $100,000s or a few $1 million on essentially an 8-minute long event. How has technology as a whole changed Fashion Week? That's a very good question. I think designers and brands really were forced to spend more time in exploring innovative technology, exploring how a live stream can be filmed and edited in a more interesting way, how supplemental content can really emphasize the short experience of a fashion show. And I think that's a really good thing that came out of the last 2 years. Everyone had a little more time to think about how digitally enhanced fashion shows really can be made. What is the importance of digital management tools for fashion shows? Obviously, check-in now works in a more complicated way than it worked 2 years ago for a fashion show. Most, if not all, shows require now for our guests to show up vaccinated. So we're using different softwares to check vaccination status, vaccination passes. So I would say generally guest management and sending out invites and checking vaccination status is a much bigger effort than it was in the past. So obviously digital management systems to manage your guests are becoming increasingly more important.
So similarly to the way we're seeing a blending of the physical and the digital realities, we're also seeing a crossover between brands wanting to reach industry audiences and consumer audiences. If one thing came out of the pandemic, it was really, I think that brands had to take a hard look at their business and from a commercial standpoint. And we saw a lot of brands the brands that had success really were those that were able to build a strong e-commerce business, who had a really strong retail connection or offering. So I think that as we move into the future, it'll mean increased consumer access, and that'll largely be driven from a retail perspective. In speaking with retailers, we see that there's a very direct quantifiable correlation between designers who show during Fashion Week and then the sales that they see that season. So there's data points that prove that skipping Fashion Week season really does hurt your sales. And as a brand, you do lose momentum, both from a press and social amplification standpoint, as well as in relation to sales. We're really seeing a shift to more live streamed and also pre-taped content, but with much higher production value. And we, as a platform and as the event organizer, are providing ways for brands to integrate e-commerce within their live streaming and within their video content. So we have mobile shopping capabilities embedded within our live stream, and we rolled that out during the pandemic, and a lot of designers have seen some great success with that, and we will continue to focus on that moving into the future.
Perspective, NewYorkFashionWeek.com serves as our online destinations for all of the New York Fashion Week activity. And we're offering on our website consumer and industry audiences virtual access to exclusive digital content. We provide access to e-commerce and unique designer experiences, cultural conversations, and many special events. Still, New York Fashion Week is the largest media event in New York and one of the largest media events in the country. Also, the content that is being created through a runway show has both an immediate and lasting impact. It generates a lot of amazing marketing assets for designers and brands for up to 6 months to follow. And on the other side, showing at New York Fashion Week really fuels designer sales pipeline year-round.
Traditionally, Fashion Week was all about who was sitting in the front row, which editors turned up. I still remember years ago when, the industry was up in arms because certain designers had their front row stacked with influencers or Instagrammers. I mean, that's no longer even part of the conversation. I think that's a given now, and we're now moving beyond the in-person experience and thinking how we can blend the physical and the digital experience. Through COVID, I think there were a lot of opportunities and pressure almost for brands to think about how they could connect with their audiences digitally. And there are many great examples of things that brands did and are continuing to do to push boundaries in the digital space. But I think what we're seeing as we move through the pandemic and brands have had the opportunity and the time to fine tune the way that they show up and the way that they are presenting their collections virtually or digitally, is that there's going to be a blending of the two. So we're really, as we move through February and look to September and beyond, are looking at ways that we can support designers in producing content or providing them with a platform that really brings the in-person physical experience into a virtual world, whether that's through some sort of metaverse experience or what everyone's talking about at the moment with NFTs. If I were to offer one piece of advice for industry professionals or designers looking to amplify during Fashion Week, it would really be just to continue to show up. As we've touched on, there's a myriad of benefits of showing during an organized Fashion Week, but really to throw out that old playbook, forget about the rules and the traditions, and forge a new path forward, make the most of the technology that's out there. There's so much innovation going on in the world right now. And although a lot of us who work in the fashion space aren't digital experts, I think by seeking out information and educating ourselves and partnering with creatives and experts in that field, there's a lot that we can apply to the fashion industry and the fashion world. And I think we're only at the beginning of a new frontier in terms of, some of the incredible creative content that brands can put out there.
For industry professionals, I believe in a world post-COVID, the expectation really is that fashion's responsibility is also to inspire social change. That could be in the representation business, on environmental, political, or other causes. It's something we take really serious, and it's something we're committed to. The magic in New York City really is the revitalization of New York City, because the fashion industry is so integral to its commerce and to its culture. And that's really where we are putting our effort and our investments moving forward. And we look forward to hopefully a better 2022. What is my advice to designers? I think what COVID in the last 2 years really has shown us that even such a dramatic and on so many levels devastating situation also has a few positives, even if that is just people being more open in looking into different formats of fashion shows, people being more open in educating themselves in how fashion could be different in the future, how fashion shows could be staged in a different way. We learned a lot. We did so much research. We had more time to do research. We had more time to connect on a deeper level with our clients and to understand their goals. And I think that was really a positive thing that we are taking into this year and into the next year, and which will also help us to develop our business and all our clients' goals.